is that this past Friday night, we had like what I would call, you know, like restaurants have a soft opening where like they open, but they only invite the influencers and they're like really trying to figure out the glitches and what to improve and whatnot. So we did like that first, not influencers, because any Jewish student is welcome. But we did like for the ones who are in town, our students have been moving back, and this week we start. This week it's like hit the ground running, and classes start and Shabbat starts, and we have a bar mitzvah on Friday and a welcome barbecue outdoors in hopefully not 100-degree weather on Thursday. So it's going to be jam-packed week. Yes, that's a really, whoever just wrote that, let's get to that. But yes, we'll definitely cover that because I think that's super important. Thank you for writing that about Elul and how we can actually really make Elul a real thing, because really Elul, it can be a real thing. Okay. So let's just briefly, so we had this like soft opening, if you'd like to call it, and we like did it outdoors and like boxed food and like little challah rolls, which were homemade and made with love and blah, 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 and brownies made deliciously, wrapped up, but like on a disposable tablecloth outside, water bottles, like shooing beetles. I don't know. It was just like, it was like the students were so happy to be those, I think maybe only like 20, 25 people Friday night. And our normal Friday nights are like 90, right? But no one's yet back in town. So, but the interesting thing was the students were so excited to be back. And I was like, I literally was like down. Like Friday night, I was just down. I was like, this stinks. This really stinks. I was like not in a good place. Not like I was depressed or anything, but I was just like, this is not cool. And one of the students who like, he's our student body president, he's a real man. She's like, you know, Manya, we're just so happy to be together and see each other. Like the food's delicious, like everything's fine. Like basically he was telling me in a very nice way, because he's a respectful man. She's like, just basically get over it. Like, we don't care. We're just happy to be together. And I was just like, the reason I was so like funk, I just felt like in a funk. In my head, I'm comparing it to what normally is. And it's not what is, because the world isn't what is. But then I was like, trying to reframe it. And a very dear friend said, just remember, you know, she's one of my students' parents, so she has really good perspective. She said, yeah, guys, as far as random questions, honestly, just unmute yourself. I do have this is what I hope to do. Just unmute yourself and feel free to ask it. Don't be shy. It's a small group. It's 22 of us. I hopefully by now we've created an environment where everyone can really just be themselves and not worry about being judged. Like, there's no judgment. I'm not like, whatever. I'm not God. I'm not your parent. I'm not your principal. So it's all good. Whatever you want, make yourself comfortable. Though I will say feedback from your principals, they're really excited to really, really excitingly, we have a meeting tomorrow with them. All the teachers who taught for Summer for Your Soul have a meeting with a lot of the principals to discuss
Thank you.
some of the benefits of what this week of Torah learning and how it meant to the girls. And basically, we're going to all get on there and say how awesome you are and how you're so ready to have real sink your teeth into learning. So snaps for you ladies. I'm just saying, just know that. It's good stuff. Anyway, so it was interesting because after I was feeling a little bit of a funk, one of the moms I'm very close with, she messaged me, she's like, how you doing? And I told her what, you know, I was like, honestly, I'm a little down. Like, it's a little like stinks. Like, it's not what I'm used to. And she's like, she just said, she's like, Manya, don't waste your time on that. Like, the students are just like so happy. I'm like, I know they are, but it's again, all in our heads. And that's really what is so important. What I want to do is quickly I want to sum up the last two classes. I'm not doing the review because anyone who wants to review, Rivki's laughing already because she knows we could spend the whole class reviewing the review of the review. So we're not going to do that. And for sure, there would be 5 more stories in the review of the review of the review, but we're not going to do that. What instead we'll do is, and we still didn't get the recordings up, not because we're like lazy, but because we're in over our heads. We have a lot going on. It's been a lot. I'm not going to lie. A lot of extra going on. Yeah, there is. No, not that. This classes are. They did. Okay. We'll do it. My husband's like, what? They are. I'll do it. He's ready to do it. Okay. So basically, if you think it's just me teaching, it's my husband being like, of course you should teach, and of course I'll take care of your recordings, and of course I'll send it out. So it's a team effort, team group project. Yeah, exactly.
Thank him for us.
What I want to do, huh? Mishka, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
Thank him for us.
I will. So, okay, what's interesting is I want to cover the end of the class. because there were some huge key takeaways. So even if you weren't in the past two classes, this in and of itself will be amazing. And then there are some great questions on the bottom, which we'll start to get to. If we don't, what I don't mind doing, and I just need one point person to be my weekly nudge. If we set it in stone that every Monday, 6:30, we jump on and learn together, one person will be the weekly, I'm calling you nudge, but I don't mean nudge. I mean the responsible one who follows through and makes sure that other people know that this is happening. So I'm saying the word nudge, but I actually mean it's a big compliment.
I don't mind doing it. Also, I think it's 7:30 for Eastern.
Oh yeah, no, I know. So I said 6:30 my turn. Yes, I'm an hour behind. Yes, true story. Thank you for clarifying, Leah. Okay, so Leah's officially taken on this project. Go, Leah. I would give her claps, but we appreciate it. Leah's gonna make sure that I'm on, and Leah's gonna make sure that everyone knows that we're continuing. So what we could actually do from here is I actually have a series of classes which will adapt and will work. Obviously, there's no rigidness, but years ago when I started on Shlichus, I found like the first few Yom Tovim that like I showed up at class, and not a class, but I showed up at like Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and I felt very like, yeah, I made a good kugel and challah, like, but I didn't feel like I didn't feel like I was ready for Rosh Hashanah or Elul or Hanukkah. Like I felt like something was missing for me, and so I actually prepared like, I'm going to give you the catchy name that I called it, the Kabbalah of the holidays. We don't have to call it Kabbalah of the holidays, but it was basically looking at all the themes, ideas of each Yom Tiv and each like on the calendar, and like what's the energy of each, because the calendar in Yiddishkeit has an energy, and we're supposed to draw that energy into our lives. So we actually change as people and tap into it. So it's not just like Rosh Hashanah is like, what am I eating and what's my menu and what new dress am I getting? It's also like, whoa, something powerful is happening. Am I tapping in? So I'm happy if you want from this class on, once we finish this, and next class we could cover Elul, and I'm sure you're going to cover this in school and extensively, but I'm happy to continue. So Leah's in charge, and she is going to take care of it. Yes, Leah? Awesome. All right, so let's jump into the key takeaways from the class where we explored the practical lessons from the people in Tanach. And remember, there's so many more characters, there's so much more. These were incredible tzaddikim, and there's a reason the Torah documented them, or a reason we learn about them regularly. So what are some of the key takeaways? And hold on, I'm just gonna minimize. I'm gonna try to see if I can put the questions on the side. I'm not so like, we'll figure out how I could do this. I did see, hold on a second, guys, sorry. All right, I got some private questions that are amazing, and one was about davening and one was about Elul. So Elul, we'll maybe start at the end of this, but we'll go take a deeper dive next week, because we probably won't have time, because we're going to cover this now. All right, so look, what we talked about is that each of those characters, there are certain takeaways we can have. That obviously we learned about having our values and asking ourselves what are negotiable and what are non-negotiable, and why that is so significant is because it really does determine a lot of the decisions we're going to make in life. And I think that a lot of times we're going to have different situations, or we're going to be put in a situation where our values are going to be challenged. And I want to tell you an interesting story. We were once on campus, and we had our sukkah in a kind of an unusual spot, and this, guy who was very Muslim looking, meaning dressed very not American, is riding his bike down the ride, and he sees the sukkah, and he like slows down, like circles around, and comes back and parks in front of the sukkah. So I'm like, all the Jews in the sukkah are like, like, what's going on? Are we okay? Because we were like a little nervous. There was terrorism stuff going on. And our campus happens to be a very safe, loving, warm, wonderful campus, but like, we're a little scared. There's good reason. And he pulls up, and he said, he goes to my husband, who's obviously clearly Jewish, a beard, yarmulke, everything. He says, are you the rabbi? Yeah, I'm a rabbi. He says, I just noticed as I was riding my bike, we're all like listening in, because like, what is this guy coming to say? He's like, I just noticed I was riding my bike that a woman came up to your hut, and the woman wanted it, like stuck out her hand, and you didn't shake her hand. Why didn't you shake her hand? So my husband starts explaining, well, I'm Jewish, and I'm a rabbi, and I'm Orthodox, and we don't shake, whatever. Explain, we don't shake the power of touch, and we don't touch, shake hands to someone who doesn't, belong to us, all the stuff they explain. And the guy's like, I found it so inspiring, really inspiring. He said, yeah, he said, it's also my value. Religiously, that's also my value, not to touch women that are not part of my family, either my wife, whatever. And I find that because I'm in America and I'm an American college campus, I don't have the guts to stick by that. And I noticed you did. like literally from as he's riding his bike and he's watching this interaction. So no matter where we are, having our core values be absolute and knowing what those are, and seeing that we're going to be in situations that are going to challenge it, whether you're on vacation at the beach, like, okay, at the beach, no one's going to know whether you're wearing whatever, where you are and whether you take those values with you or not. So we learned about that and really knowing what those are. We talked also about having a certain openness, whether it's in the own homes that we have or our homes that we, God willing in the future have, but with love and chesed and how significant that is, despite all the challenges, that we could still be givers and we're designed that way. We talked about having a level of moral clarity despite any issues in our homes or our families when we were raised or whatever. We all have issues. Like every single human is going to have issues. Like no one here can't say they don't have issues. Like it's part of life. It's okay. Like, so I told you guys, I was like, used to be so worried. Oh my gosh, my kid's gonna have issues. I'm like, I've come to accept they're gonna have issues. That's life. If they're human, they're gonna have issues. So we talked about like that we can get beyond those and we can just learn from those and use that as fuel for goodness. And have moral clarity and values despite whatever our personal, challenges are. We talked also about the significance about Yosef, about seeing someone else's pain, not just getting stuck in our own rut of chaos or pain or life challenges like pity party, poor me, how we can get beyond that and how we're designed to. We talked also about seeing that Hashem sends us exactly where we're meant to be in life. That alone is huge. We've had a whole class on that. We could talk about that day and night. And I really see it day in and day out of my shlichus. I really, Hashem, like literally positions us exactly where he wants. I always tell myself, I feel like sometimes we're just like on a chessboard. The Abishur is running the game. And he's like, actually right now I need you here. No, actually now here. And sometimes you have no clue why, where, but we are exactly where the Abishur wants us. And I do think we are very lucky in our life that we see it very, very often. I have to remind myself when I don't see it that it's still happening. Like even Friday night when there was only one freshman who walked in and didn't know anyone and people were like, didn't yet notice and they were so happy to be together and they were cliquey. And I was like, oh my gosh, like if I was her, this is the first time she's coming to Chabad, like outdoors with like little plastic containers and disposable forks that like crack when you're eating them. And I'm like cringing. And meanwhile, after Shabbos, she sent me the most beautiful text, like, thank you. It was such a warm environment. And I was so happy and I felt so welcome. And I was like, okay, good. But like Hashem knew exactly when this is the girl that was meant to come at this time to this place. So we talked about that extensively. I think it's a recurring theme in our lives. And I actually think we are going to walk away from COVID with a little bit of trauma, but we'll also walk away seeing that Hashem wanted the world in this place, like whether we know it or not, whether we could see it or not. And we talked also about like standing up for our conviction. We talked about Miriam, how when you have something that's the right thing to do, how you have to have guts and you have to be able to stand up. And I think when peer pressure kicks in, and it kicks in, okay, conviction's a huge thing, huge thing. And we have to we shouldn't give up. Like have your conviction and stand up for it.
I have a question.
Go for it.
Is there though a concept of like if everyone's doing something, maybe it's right?
Yeah, if it's right. If it's actually right. If it's right, if everyone is being nice to someone and your conviction tells you to be a bully, then
but you don't always know what's right.
Give an example, Ricky.
Okay, this is silly, but like even with Corona, if everybody's not being careful, then why should I be careful?
Okay, so just because everybody...
No, why should I? Sorry. Do I need to be the one standing out being like, you have to be careful? Maybe everyone else is right.
Say that again, Rifki. A little louder because I couldn't hear you. My volume, I'm going to raise my volume here. Go ahead. Sorry, didn't realize. Say it again. Sorry.
Maybe if everybody else isn't being so careful, then I don't have to be the one person being careful. Maybe they're right.
Okay, that's
Does that make
interesting
sense?
thing. So I think, what's interesting? There's this line that say, all flies eat dung, okay? Animal, it says, let me try this again. Eat dung, all flies can't be wrong. It's a really kind of obnoxious, gross, ew thing, but it's funny, meaning just because everyone else is does not mean it's the right thing. No, I think, look at that. Look what that mindset got us in a lot of trouble, both historically as a people, got us a lot of trouble, yeah, all, I this actually, it's interesting if you said this, because there was a lot of questions that came up kind of recurring. When Mrs. Slonim did her Q&A, basically it was 20 questions that she answered, okay? Unless she got private ones that she could continue to answer. Out of the 20 that she answered, every single one of those 20 was made up of probably 10 questions that were asked either recurring, meaning it was asked again and again and again. So therefore I combined it and put it into one question so she can answer it. So, and what we just because, and questions came up again and again. And one of the things were about kind of like, how do I navigate what's right and what's wrong? I think you have to have a conversation of like, with your example with Corona, I see on my campus, majority of students are not being careful, like we're walking home on Friday night and my daughter is watching a student going into a party with like a 6-pack of beer, and clearly the house, there's music, there's lights, there's cars, and my daughter's like, she's 10, what is wrong with these students? Are they just going all in for Corona parties? Everybody's gonna lick things with, what are they doing? She just can't, okay, so I could be that, but
I think we need your kids to give us a class.
By the way, actually, what I asked them once, I said, would you guys do a interview about your shluchas? Because they're hilarious. Bailey, my kids a little bit, right? My girls. They're
hilarious.
They're hilarious because they're around 18. They're probably more mature than half the students. So, no, I'm serious. Actually, Friday night, there was a whole group and they sat at a clique and my daughter was so disturbed by it. She said, don't they know what it feels like to be left out? I mean, I think I would give them the example that one of them went with us on a Shabbaton and everyone ignored her. She knows what it feels like. I think you should remind her what it feels like. So they were horrified. Yeah, it was pretty funny. So yeah, that's the advantages / disadvantages of being raised on campus. But my point is, they see all this irresponsible behavior and they're trying to understand it, what is basically what's wrong with the people. And then I have a few students who are absolutely not. I'm not going to outdoor Shabbat. I'm not putting myself in a dangerous situation. That's a good example because I think that you have to and I actually put this out there in shul listings because we are opening and we're doing things outdoors and we're doing things as safely as we can. And obviously Hashem's in charge after that, what happened. But there are shluchim who don't feel comfortable opening. And I said to shluchis, number one, remember we're bringing our own personality to the table, our own, let's say traumas or whatever. And then we have to follow local guidelines and school guidelines and state guidelines. You have to there is a moral right and wrong. A culture that says, let's do it because everyone else is what led to, I'm sorry to say something so extreme, but it led to extermination of 6 million. You think every German citizen was a bad person? They weren't. They just got swept up in a wave of, anti-Semitism, hatred. I think that, yes, Al Tifresh Min HaTzibur is a thing, but it's when the tzibur is doing what's right, not when the tzibur is doing what's wrong. I'll be honest. There were certain people from clothing lines that I've been following on Instagram because I live in College Station. How many, I said, there's 3 Walmarts, 2 Targets, and nothing else. Where am I getting my clothes? So it's all online. So sometimes I follow. And lately I had to unfollow some because it was just every single dress was down to here. And I'm okay, should I do it because everyone else is? No, that's generally not my standard, right? That's generally not the Chabad way. So I'm not saying it's only with relation to tznius. I'm not, because whatever, it's relation to everything else. We have to have our moral compass. And I said this in the past, whenever you study a drop of Gemara. Okay, I know we don't do a lot of Gemara Chabad. A drop of Gemara, you'll see the debates and the arguments back and forth. Yidden had no problem with debating and arguing. Chachamim had no problem with getting into passionate discussions and debates and arguments like a bunch of lawyers. Once a student who was in law school came and he saw my son's Gemara work. He's literally, this is my law journal. It's what is going on here? This argument with this proof and that proof of this, with that. What? But the point is the goal was always to uphold Torah mitzvahs and what the Eibishter wanted. You understand, Rifki? The goal of us doing what's right is, yes, pikuach nefesh is a thing. And just because everyone else is doesn't mean it. Now, I agree that you look at some communities now who've already had COVID, run rampage through your communities and masks are gone and social distancing is gone. I'm not one to judge because I live in a place where that didn't happen. But I also see what's going on with certain students who everyone else is not careful. So let me not be careful. I think we have to always have, yeah.
I'm talking about when you don't know so we were talking about Avram when he said one person against the whole world. Okay, Avram knew it was right, but saying so, not always when you're the one person, maybe you're wrong.
Okay, so Rivki, I think I would love to hear a case where it's really, really confusing. Because like right now for me as a Chabad on campus shliach, the wrong thing would be to open up regular. Okay, the right thing for me to do is go out of my way to create a safe, healthy space with all the precautions and twist like this. I'm telling you, preparing my Shabbat to goes and my Shabbat outdoors and my ionizers and my study pots. It's a nightmare. It's a headache. It's a lot of work. It's a lot harder. The easy thing would be to shut my doors this semester and say, peace out. I'll give you Shabbat to go. Goodbye. And stay in my pajamas in a robe all Shabbos. I mean, like not pajamas, but like, Shabbos pajamas, like the long, comfortable dresses. Oh my gosh, that's totally been my highlight of quarantine, by the way. Not putting on heels for Lichbenchen. I'm so excited. I'm saying like, that would be the easiest thing, but like, that's not the right thing. But also opening up with no standards is not the right thing. So if you're unsure, ask a friend, ask a mashpia, ask someone that gives you something. But the gray is always harder to navigate. I agree with you, Rivki. Because when things are right and wrong, it's easier. The gray is always harder to navigate. You're right. But if it's something like the example you gave, I would say it depends on your city, your town, your local community, what the standards are. And remember that there is right and wrong. It's the gray stuff. You know, the things that are just that it's like, So if you have an example, Rivki, I'm challenging you now to find an example that's great. That you
I could give you another example that's kind of silly. Not silly, but like a funny.
Silly. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't go to seminary. That is very not the norm. So maybe if everybody's going to seminary, maybe it's the right thing to do.
Okay, that's
that kind of thing.
That's a gray. That's not right or wrong.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
So if you said I didn't go to seminary and instead I'm going to a beach resort to be a waitress, I'd say that's wrong. But if you say I'm not going to seminary, but I'm involved in a Vaidas HaKadosh and giving back to young Chabad girls, I'd say you're making the right decision for you. Do you understand?
Yeah, but
but that's whatever. Sometimes, okay, I'm going to say this and it's going to be blasphemous. I think sometimes we get swept away by this is what we do. What does that mean? What does that mean? This is what we do. This meaning Avram was, yes, he was standing out, but he was standing out for the right reason. Rivki, let me ask you a personal question. Why didn't you go to seminary?
I didn't get accepted.
Okay, that's one reason.
But I wasn't sure what's right. I wasn't sure if I should, apply. Should I be learning now or should I go on shachas? Everybody's learning now, so maybe, is there a concept that everyone's doing this, so maybe it's right?
I think a lot of times in our community, sometimes in our society, we put a lot of emphasis on everyone dates on 6 dates. By 6 dates, you should know. Really? Where does it say that? In Shulchan Aruch, in Halacha, in Minhagei Chabad? Like, I go by to like what is Iker and what's Tafel. Not saying not going to seminary is not. I can tell you, Rivki, not saying we shouldn't go to seminary. I'm a big fan. If you want to learn and you have a year and you could do it, b'chavod. But if you have a year where you're going to go and teach, I guarantee you're going to learn a lot this year. Oh yeah.
I know. I was this year on shachas and I had a great year. But exactly. I'm saying whatever. Sometimes you do crazy things, like someone does something crazy. Whatever.
Really disclaimer. I mean, okay, I don't want to say this. I also didn't go to. I didn't go to seminary either. It worked for me. I'm not saying that's the right thing. I'm a fan of seminary. I want my girls to go. You know what I mean? I'm saying, but I think everyone that's where a mashpia like seichel comes in. Where like this is the right thing to me. How about this? The conclusion is: does it take me closer to fulfilling who I am and what I could accomplish in this world? Did you contribute to the world and bring light and kedusha into the world? That's your answer. Is this decision going to lead me to moving forward? I was having a conversation with some curriculum developers. Is
it a concept though that if everyone's doing something, is that like an opinion and like if everyone's doing something?
I think I'll take for a minute, Sieber.
Are you thinking
Huh? Sorry, go ahead.
Is she thinking Alter Freshman at
That's literally what I said. If
Oh,
you're
okay,
thinking
maybe.
Altik for Shmina Tzibur is if you like went on like, if you like decided like seminary is terrible and I'm not going and neither should you, and that's not what you're doing. You're saying for me, where I'm at in my life, I was unsure whether it was the right thing to do. I went on Shluchas instead. I really, really think we have to be very conscious not to overextend ourselves, to drive ourselves insane about what everyone else is doing. I think you, the Eibishter, wants you, Rivki, to fulfill your tafkid. If you had a year of giving and shluchas and enriching the lives of others, that's what is your story. I think sometimes we get very caught up on it, and I think it's okay, I'm gonna sound blasphemous. It could be even a flaw of the Frum system. I see it, by the way, in college too. Everyone else is doing this, so therefore I have to. I'm like, really? You have to? I have girls who tell me everyone else is in relationships and has boyfriends, so therefore I have to. I'm like, really? Why? You can't be a strong, healthy, independent person who's working on yourself and growing? And they're like, oh, yeah, I guess I can. So Rivki, you grew from last year. You contributed last year. It was the right decision for you. They should put you where you're meant to be. You didn't get accepted. You probably, it sounds like you weren't even sure whether you wanted to go or not. Like you were like on the fence, so you applied because someone said you have to, so you did. And the was like, actually, you don't need to. You're not accepted. Go on shluchas. So it sounds like you actually did exactly what was meant to be. And I bet you could think of it. If I asked you now, if I challenge you, give us 3 things that you made a difference in someone's life in 3 areas, I bet you have more than 3 to give. So that's right. Ask yourself, minhag, ask yourself, there's a sefer minhagei Chabad. Is it say anywhere in minhagei Chabad that a girl has to go to seminary? Yes, no? Oh, no, not really. So don't get clouded by what everyone else does. You have to do, we have our own neshama and our own journey and our own tafkid, and the Eibusher guides us where we need to be. Obviously, if you're saying everyone else covers their needs, so I don't want to, I would say, okay, open basically Shulchan Aruch, like stop, don't fool yourself, right? So we're talking about, it's not even halacha, it's not even, I don't even know what it is. Oh, is community standards? I don't know. By the way, it's also the same thing with sheitos, like everyone else has a middle part. Guess what? I'm not getting a middle part. You know why? It doesn't look good on me. So I don't have to have a flat middle part with a giant white line because that's what everyone else is doing. Be you. As they say on campus, you be you. As long as obviously halacha, Torah, Eibishter, all of that, obviously. Okay? Rivki, is that a little bit more clear? Not so much. Huh? Rivki, if you're still unsure, discuss it with your mashpia. I'm serious. And if you don't have one, get one. because the only one you have to answer to. I want to tell you something interesting. Sidebar, I was having a conversation with some curriculum developers in a seminary, and I was saying one of the things you must make sure is that girls know that there's something unique that they can contribute to the world. And someone pushed back and they said, you think girls at 18, 19, 20 could figure that out? I'm like, if they don't know that at 18, 19, 20, we have a lot bigger issues. So you contributed to the world. We're meant to be givers and contributors and make a difference. And I will tell you, I'm going to embarrass Bela and Leah here, and Devorah is also on. They were involved in creating a summer for our girls, for our kids, for kids in this, in Houston and Texas, whatever. They did in our Chavadot. They changed lives for kids this summer in a small way. And I always say this to my kids' counselors. And I was speaking to another camp director about training staff. In the end, it didn't happen. I said the main thing the girls need to know is they can make a difference and change lives. So anything you're doing, make a difference and change a life in the positive. That's it. Okay? Make sense, Rivki? A little bit better? Don't get so distracted by what quote everyone else does. I think it's Pasha Yitzhahar. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. As long as it does, I mean, I'm not a Rav, but I really don't think it's the right. I think it's almost like a byproduct of like keeping up with the Joneses and fitting in. I don't know. That's my opinion. As long as, again, halacha, Torah, Eibishter, all of those are priorities. Moving forward, I want to wrap the main points, okay? We talked about the idea of knowing that all of this happens, basically, we have to remember that we are chelik elokam ma'al mamish. The Eibishter put us here for a reason, and we learn this basically in its basics of Tanya, ABCs, we learn it, we said it, we hear it, we know it, and we also understand that we talked about in Eov, it says that, you know, everyone is meant, the goal of life is to toil. So when you find yourself in a vaiditika place where you're struggling as a person, personally, emotionally, or whatever way, that we have to remember that it is exactly how the Eibishter created the world. You know that famous story of the chick that's hatching and someone watches the chick and they're like, oh, never, he sees a chick finally pecking, come out of the shell, and it collapses and it's like heaving and it looks exhausted. And someone's like, never, poor chick. The next time he sees an egg hatch, he's going to help the chick out. He's going to peel you heard this story, yes? He's going to peel the shell of the egg. Pasha has Rahmanas on the chick. The chick was so exhausted and drained and tired and knocked out. So why should it work so hard? Peels the chick comes out and it dies. Why? The chick develops strength and stamina and lung capacity and that it's going to need for life from that hard labor of pecking out of its own shell. Okay? So we cannot look at difficult situations or difficult things as an obstacle for growth. They're part of growth. And often we look at emotions or we look at challenges and we want to stay away from them. And I myself am same. I don't like conflict, but that's exactly where we're meant to grow. And we know that a neshama we each are endowed with a neshama that has infinite potential. Every single neshama has I remember when our triplets were born and it was my son's bris, he was 2 months old. And I remember saying to, at like the bris baby welcoming, whatever, I remember saying everyone, because people are like, how did you not freak out over them? I'm like, we were so in awe of the gift that Hashem gave us of 3 healthy babies born at once. And we were so aware of the fact that each one had literally a part of the Eibishter in them that is infinite potential that's going to change the world. Now my job is to raise them to do that. That's okay. That's where my work comes in, right? But that's what all of us have inside of us. And we have to remember that. We have to remember that light we have within us. And we talked to, how at the end of the day, birth is the fact that we're here is the Eibishter saying, I need you. The world needs you. So we got to keep reminding ourselves of that. And we talked about also a little bit how when a sign of life is ups and downs, right? Sometimes it feels like those arcade games where one thing pops up and you settle it. Those arcade, the whack-a-mole games. I think that's so much of what life feels like sometimes. This thing pops up and you settle it down, and the next thing pops up and you settle it, and you think nothing's under control ever, right? And that's okay. It's the nature of life. It's the way the Eibishter wants us. You read the L'Tzar Chaliyah. We are meant to celebrate being a human being. Celebrate being flawed. Is that crazy to say? I told you I spent the first many years of my parenting thinking, I'm going to mess up. And then the next few years of my parenting, I'm going to mess up. And that's okay. I am human. I'm going to do the best I can, but I'm going to mess up. And I'm going to take responsibility because I'm going to teach my children what that means. I'm going to apologize because I'm going to teach my children what that means. I'm going to acknowledge my children that I am imperfect, but I love them and I'm there from them and I'm learning from them and I'm growing and we're in this together. Okay, I just want to say, not we're in this together like I'm your best friend. I'm not into parents being best friends. I remember once when my kids were young, I'm not going to be your friend anymore. I'm like, that's okay. We're not friends. I love you, but we're not friends. I'm your mom, there's a difference. So not in that unhealthy, weird boundaries, whatever way where it's murky and a kid doesn't know where they stand, but in a way of that's a part of life. And I think also when we accept that and acknowledge that, we also can embrace maybe some of the things that hurt us and bother us about our parents, that even if you have the best relationship with your parents, they're human. And when you can acknowledge that about them and you can acknowledge about yourself, and then God willing, guys, I once said to one of my children, I'm going to do the best I can and I'm going to mess up, but you, God willing, will become an adult and you'll have children and you'll mess up too. It's part of it. Failure is a part of the process. How you look at failure is the thing that's going to change it. So look in your life, see the areas that you keep failing or messing up or struggling. That's literally the Eibishter giving you a neon sign saying, hey, my dear, this is where you can grow. It's a gift. Problem is that we are so embarrassed of failure and we're worried what everyone else is going to think and whatever. We know why we're scared of failure, right? We all understand. Failure doesn't feel good, but we have the wrong perspective of it. Remember what I said last time? I was learning at Maimer where the Alter Rebbe defines, no, Alter Rebbe doesn't say that. It was Alter Rebbe defines in Lakota Torah, chisaron being a need, not a flaw. That's so brilliant. Oh my gosh. Literally my brain was we ended up with a whole 2-hour debate in our family and the whole Shabbos day about it. because we look at chesaron as a flaw. I have a chesaron, this person's a chesaron. By the way, same thing when it comes to dating, God willing, when it comes to having children. When you see a child who has a chesaron, it's really a need. And when we meet that need, that's where that chesaron becomes fuel for growth. Okay? It's a whole shift in how you see your own chesaronis, how you see the chesaronis of your family, how you see the chesaronis of your friends. Total shift. Okay? And we have to remember that as a huge thing, and I started off with this, is wherever your mind is, that's where you are. And it's a line from Baal Shem Tov that's so brilliant. Wherever your mindset is, that's where you are. You know what? Friday night, I was down when I chatted with that lady, secular lady, a friend, and she was like, Manya, you know what? She told me something so interesting. I was just saying, like, for me, I just feel sorry for the freshmen coming in. Like, I do. Like, I feel sorry for them. Like, this is their freshman year. They're so looking forward. And she says, you know, her mother was in quarantine at 6 years old from either polio or like one of the other whatever diseases that now we have immunization and we don't think twice about. Yes, the sweet potatoes are for sure burning. Someone should check them. Sorry, dinner's also going on. They're for sure, they smell ready. We're having sweet potato fries. If anyone wants to join us, and salmon, you're more than welcome. Fishman's, it's not too late. You can drive over. They're burnt already? Okay, they smell good. So what's important she tells me her mother was 6 years old and she was quarantined alone in a room at 6 I forgot, for longer than a week or two, okay? A long time. And she said that when she looks back at it, what did she remember? That her mother or grandmother every night took turns coming in. I think they had to have some protective material. And they would bring her meals on a silver tray. And she says she remembers they sat far from her, but at those times she felt like a princess. And she said that's all she remembers from it. So we have to think, what are we going to look back on this time? It was so beautiful to hear from someone else, which I think the more real we are, the more people are open. Like, she doesn't say, like, oh, you're a Rebbetzin, I can't tell you this. Like, she's like, Manya, the students are so happy to have you, and they're so happy to be there, and don't feel guilty. Like, you're doing the best you can, and I just want to tell you that this is how I needed to hear it. And I said to her, like, wow, Pam, thanks to that realignment. It was such a good mindset shift. So we just got to remember the mind, how powerful it is, and that the idea of our, Maya Shalta is a real thing. Our brain is here for a reason, right? And we also need to make sure we're getting the help support that we need always in life. And it's so interesting. It's if you don't know, if you're not inspired to yet have a mashpia, seriously, ladies, do it. It's the biggest gift. It's awkward for 5 seconds when you ask that person to be mashpia, but the rest of it is like a gift. Because if you did anyone here learn the sichos where the Rebbe really, really was pushing for mashpia? Raise your hand if you did. One, Rifki. Anyone else? There's a lot of little black squares. I hope either of them did. Guys, literally, it was like the Rebbe was saying it yesterday to us. And the Rebbe in the sichos challenges basically every single doubt you and I have about why we shouldn't have mashpia and who we're going to ask to be our mashpia and the awkwardness. And the Rebbe puts all of those questions, settles all of them. Rifki, yes? Rifki, you want to share one or two ideas that you gained from those sichos or no? Since you're only going to raise your hand. Oh, Rifki's being put on this. Rivka, it looks like you want to share. Go ahead, share Rivka a little bit. I see your face. Go ahead, share a little bit.
Wait, was Rifki going to say something?
Both of you should say something.
No, but Rifki, go first.
Does there ever say something about that the mashpia has to be an angel and then, or I don't know,
You
something
think,
about,
this one's not good enough or that one's not good enough.
Then find someone not as great at, if you really think you're greater than everyone, find someone less
Well, no, basically what the Rebbe basically talks about is the Rebbe talks about two things. The Rebbe talks about the idea that, well, there's many things the Rebbe talks about, and I haven't looked at those sichos in a while, I'm not going to lie, but I remember some of the recurring things. It was so reassuring to me to hear how the Rebbe addresses basically what the naysaying thoughts in your head are, okay? There's no one I know, there's no one I could trust, or how do I know they're going to give me good advice, or who's good enough, do I know anyone who, Like all the typical things we tell ourselves, and the Rebbe basically is like, just, you know, realize that the words that come out of Mashpia's mouth are sometimes, they're not from the Mashpia's like own brilliant wisdom. Like it's the Abishur's way of getting the clarity to you. Like it's really powerful. Now, obviously, even if you're the type of person who maybe you're not comfortable, like I'm shy and I'm not going to call people and ask them questions. There are people like that, right? Where we're like, I'm not sure I'm comfortable. So I would say, even if you're not the type to ask questions, you could say, I'm in this situation, I would love your perspective. I'm not asking you a question. I'm not saying, what should I do? I knew a person who, you know, would call me every once in a while for questions. I was like, you know, some of it you have to just listen to your inner voice. Like you have the answers within you. Some of it we have to find the confidence and the clarity and connect to like understanding the idea. And sometimes it's just about having a springboard, not a therapist and not a life coach, but a springboard for it. And I want to say something that's so important. If you're on here and you think to yourself, listen, I'm too far gone. I'm too lost. I don't know if there's hope for me. I have too many doubts. I've made big mistakes. I'm even embarrassed to admit some of the things I do. Who could I even turn to? You have to remember you literally are a part of the Eibishter. There's no such thing as too far gone or too lost. And I want to share with you a story. I was on a flight to Israel and I sat near this woman who was an extremely like, you know when you're on the plane and you see someone who's very like a secular Israeli, like as, you know, like that type, like, I know we're not supposed to label people, but like that type. And somehow she got in a conversation of where you're from, Texas. Well, oh, are you a Chabadnik? So I was like, okay, you know, like, what is she gonna say? I'm like, yeah, actually, we're in a Chabad house, students, campus, whatever, campus, you know, whatever. She couldn't believe we lived in the middle of nowhere, whatever. What'd someone say about a bunch of cows? And then she says, you know, Chabad is a special place in my heart. And I was like, whoa, I was like, I was shocked. Okay. What did she say? She says to me that basically, okay, Rivka, you're going to jump off and share in a second. I'm not letting you I don't know if you chatted with me privately, but you're going to have to share. So as soon as I tell a story, you're jumping on to share, because I have not learned those sikhs in a while. I'm not going to lie. It's been at least 10 years since I learned those sikhs. Time flies when you're having fun. So she says to me, Chabad is a special place in my heart. I was like, really? She's, yeah, I'm so close to this shaliach. And she was like, I was shocked. So I said, what are you going to Israel for? She said, actually, I'm going for my father's shloshim. And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. Yes. She says, you know, I want to tell you something. That the Rebbe taught about the power of neshama. I said, yes. And she said, I saw it firsthand. I was like, really? She said, my father went through the Holocaust and got to Israel. On the boat over to Israel, over went the board, went the tefillin, overboard went the God. He came to Israel, rewrote his story as secular Zionist. Don't talk to me about God, religion. He hated religion and religious people. And you Chabadniks, every single time he'd pass you, they would ask him, tefillin, hinachta. He would come home and see if he cursed them out. I'm like, where's the story going? And I'm like, and she was very Israeli, dramatic, full motions, blasting the whole place, whatever. And like, if anyone passed by at those seconds, I was like, you know, whatever. She was full drama. She said, but I was there a few months ago and I knew it was the end of his life. I was like, how'd you know it was the end of his life? She says, because I took him out for a walk. He wasn't feeling well, he was getting old. And he passed those, you know, those young bachurim with the tefillin, yeah. And they said to him, hinachta? And he said, no. So they said, do you want? He said, efshar. And he stuck out his hand. She said, I saw my father at 90 years old, or whatever, he was older, 80s, 90s, with tefillin probably since the first time since he was 14, with tears pouring down his eyes. She said, and that's when I understood what the Rebbe said about the neshama. The power of the neshama, that it's always there. It's never going away. And she said, but I knew it was the end, because I knew he was getting in touch with a part of himself that he thought he could never, ever access. And she said, it taught me And then when I went home, the Chabad Shaliach, who I'd reach out to, I started learning. I understood Chabad, I understood the Rebbe, I understood my own neshama. It's never too late. The Yetzer Hara tries to convince us you're too far gone, you're too far lost, it's too late, you're a waste of time, you have too many doubts, you have too many questions, you have too many issues. No such thing. Take one step to dig yourself out of where you feel, and you, the only person who boxed yourself in is you. Just move forward. Yes, Adi, go ahead, jump in.
Okay, so this is my random question.
Yeah.
It's
and
about...
Rivka, hold on, Adi, 1 second. Rivka, I still want to hear from you. Rivka wrote out a beautiful thing about a sicha from today's Chumash, and she's going to share with us. Because I must say, I did not learn today's Chumash. I davened, I exercised, I worked hard, but I didn't say today's Chumash yet. That's not a life goal. I'm just putting that out there. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so it's about davening. I'm just wondering, like, why are we expected to daven in the Hebrew? Like, in everyone else davens, like, not from people daven in English, and it's counted as davening, and we are expected to learn Perish Tefillah. We're like davening, like saying words that don't mean anything to us. Why? I feel like it should like be more like out there that we should be allowed to daven in English so we can understand what we're saying.
Okay, Adi, I love your question. And when you, I think you had, maybe you typed, were you the one who typed it?
Yeah, I didn't write it out, but yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Thank you for explaining what you meant. I really love the question. Okay, number one, yes, I'm going to put two ideas out there. Number one, every single day, pick one tefillah to say in English. I'm going to sound crazy. Bit by bit, literally, if you need Post-it notes, you know those things that they have, those little, I'll show you, these. Take these, you know these things, these sticky things? See these little sticky notes? Put them on the side of your siddur like that. Move it around from tefillah to tefillah you're going to do in English, because you are absolutely right that we would say to, what would I say to any of my students? Oh, take your time, say it in English. It's about connection and it's about understanding, right? We would say it, but for some reason, from preschool, we're taught ramble it in Hebrew, whether it means something or not. Say bracha, rush, quickly say brachas before you put food in your mouth without meaning. So number one, yes, I want you tomorrow to pick the first tefillah, whether it's Maidani. If you were at the Maidani class, you already know what it means, so you could say it in Hebrew. Start with Asher Yatzar, pick one tefillah to say in English and really think about, literally go in order and move that little ticker thing along. Something inspires you, could write it on it. One word takeaway, but also continue in Hebrew. Why? Hebrew it's not a language. Speech, and we could have a whole class on this. What's the Kayach HaDibur? I'm happy to do a class just on this. There is a Kayach HaDibur. There is a Kayach to speech. The Eibusher created the entire world with speech. When a magician says abracadabra, it's actually for Aramaic for abira kedibur. I created with speech. That's where abracadabra comes from. Okay? The Eibusher created the world with speech, not, hey Jack, how are you? The words are Aleph, Vav, Resh, which is why when a word has the common connection, like we talked about last time, the word Nes, Nisa, and Nisayon, Nisayon being a challenge, Nisa meaning to lift up, and Nes meaning miracle, it's not just a cute gimmick that they all have the same letters. They have an energy that's drawing down. So when you say words in Hebrew, you are tapping into and drawing down an energy into your life. Don't be satisfied just with drawing in an energy that's not changing you. Tefillah is meant to be a connection and a bond and a conversation with the Eibishter. Did I share with you in any of the classes? Did I share with you anything about Tefillah at all? In any of the classes? Because I know Shefer covered it extensively. So I want to share with you a note that I have on my phone about Tefillah. And what it came from two Farbrengens. Women's Chiyav in Tefillah, not Chiyav in Tefillah. this whole back and forth discussion. We know that according to Alter Rebbe, women have a chiyuv in tefillah. And certainly if you're not married and you're not yet running after toddlers, there's a chiyuv in tefillah. So Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, remember we talked about knowing what's halacha, what's minhag, what things we do or what everyone else does. It's very clear, we have a chiyuv. So I have on my phone, and the reason I have it on my phone, notes, hold on, let's just see, tefillah. I'm gonna read it for you because, yes. You need what? You need, okay. In 2 minutes? Okay. Hold on a second, let me just see, tefillah, sorry. I'm gonna try to find it. Why can't I find it? Oh, hold on, maybe I wrote it as prayer because, because who knows? Why can't I find it? I have notes on my phone on tefillah. Okay, I'll find it shortly, but, oh, I probably put it as davening. Who knows how I put it, right? Davening, sorry, girls. Not your classic, here. Davening musings, that's what it's called, one of my notes on my phone. Why do I have it? Because a few years ago, I remember sitting with a group of shluchas having a farbrengen about davening. How much do I daven? Do my kids know I daven? Do my kids not know I daven? Do you pretend you daven? Do you hold the siddur and mumble? Like, it was literally that kind of around in circles, a mother, a young, guilt, you shouldn't feel guilty, you shouldn't feel guilty, whatever. I went around in circles, and I remember sitting near a friend, and she casually says, with all I have to do with everyone, I at least deserve 15 minutes to talk to the Eibishter. And it was such a different perspective than the discussion. It's almost like everyone else was looking at it as a chore. Should I do it or should I not do it? And she was like, I need it. And then fast forward, there was recently another discussion on the campus WhatsApp. So I'm giving you some insight into some of the questions that maybe come up in the Shluchas WhatsApp. This is why we're a lively bunch, as you've certainly gotten to know some of us. And this is one I wrote, and I'm going to just read it to you because I think it's so powerful. In all this discussion with davening, someone threw out a question that definitely made me stop and think. Why, when someone talks about a mother making time to daven, do people protest about it not being the right stage in life? But when some person mentions the importance of self-care, people would never protest. They would say, you're 100% right. You must work on self-care. Could it be that we think davening is for Hashem's sake, and Hashem knows we have enough on our plate right now, ... But if we're davening and connecting daily to our source, our strength, our connection to our Creator was the ultimate form of self-care, why would a person push it off for 20 years? No need to respond, just something we can all think about. I have to tell you, that is not my natural relationship with God. Sorry. My natural relationship with davening. It isn't. I don't look at davening as self-care, but I work on myself to see it that way. It's my time. So AD, try to ask yourself, number one, how is it that I see tefillah, davening? Do I really see it as self-care and opportunity to connect? Or do I see it as something I'm guilted into, or something I have to do, or something if I'm a Hasidic girl, I do. If I'm not, I don't. If I'm too busy, I will. If it's, oh gosh. Or do I see it as like, whoa, I deserve 15 minutes today to connect and plug in? That being said, yes, absolutely work on making it meaningful. And AD, I want by next week, you should have at least 4 tefillahs that you had a chance to read in English and really think about what they're saying. And have homework for us is that you're going to get back to us. You don't have to give up Parashah Tefillah class, but you're going to tell us how it changed your tefillah, or maybe it didn't. Maybe it's a bad experiment. There's no right or wrong here. And if it made a difference. Because I'll tell you, my Maida'anis are different because of the time I took to like really throw myself into understanding it. Okay? AD, did she run away now? I think she ran away. I gave her homework, she ran away.
No, I'm here the whole time.
Okay, whoa, now I get to see you. I was like, suddenly you disappeared on my screen. So I was like, oh no, I hope I didn't scare her off. Like, she's never coming back. Do you understand, AD? I love your question. Try it. And let us know how it goes. I think you're onto something. I think we have to have more time to really make feel and ideas our own. We must. We must. Hold on.
Can I throw something in about that?
Yeah, go for it, Leah.
I also had that problem, and then recently, well, it actually happened because you had said how like you love learning, so like you teach, so that pushes you to learn. So I decided that I'm gonna start learning more about tefillah, and I found a lot on Chabad.org, and now I'm hopefully gonna get paired up with like a chavrusa, so now that I could like pass it on, so I push myself to learn more and more about it.
Amazing. You know, like I'm not pressuring AD or you to learn together, but it's not a terrible idea. It's not a terrible idea because you know what, guys, honestly, I had a conversation with a grandfather of a conservative student, and hear this. I'm going to try to say this very quickly because I know he's the president of a temple, and some temple, and the youth aren't showing up anymore. No surprise, why aren't they showing up? Hello? Okay, so he comes to my Chabad, he's telling me the Judaism's gone, the youth aren't involved, it's gone, and he says to me, how many students were, I'm like, absolutely, totally not. He's like, what do you mean? He's like, how many students were here reading Torah on Shabbat? I'm like, I don't know, we didn't have a million, 5 students, 30 came for lunch, I don't know, you know. He's like, well, how many led the service? I'm like, and I said to him, he said, his temple sent the rabbi, talk about not our way, they sent the rabbi on a sabbatical, that he should go to Israel for a year. They paid him an apartment, go, leave, and we're going to do a study. And we're going to study why the youth don't feel connected. Okay, is that a waste of Jewish money? Yiddish geld? So I said, save your money, I'll give you the answer. He's like, looking at me like, what is she saying? It was too late, obviously. So I said to him, how about I ask you why, I'm going to ask you a question. Why on earth in 2020 should American secular youth walk into a shul? He looked at me, he's like, you call yourself a rebbitzin? Like, what is wrong with you? I'm like, how come you did not ask me how many were sitting for Shabbat dinner? I'm going to tell you something. We had 90 students sitting celebrating Shabbat. It could have been in bars, could have been at parties, could have been everywhere else. And they were celebrating Shabbat with their Jewish community. Judaism is alive and well. So he looks at me, he's like he thought I literally like landed on my head. And I said to him, how about this? Why should they? Imagine, and we head down the street, a Chinese church. I'm like, imagine you walk into the Chinese church. The service is all in Chinese. Is it meaningful? Is it inspiring? Is it uplifting? Do you feel connected? He looked at me again, and I said, for most of our youth, that is how the services are. So we have to make tefillah our own. Think of tefillah. Next time you have those feelings rise up about tefillah, think to yourself, self-care, me time. You'll see it differently. And again, guys, I'm working on that. That's something I'm working on. That's been like part of my avodah in quarantine, is to really carve out that time, because not because I don't like that. I actually like davening, but I like personal stuff. I always loved tefillah. Friday night, my boys are all, my husband, they're singing Kabbalah Shabbos together, and Shabbos day. I love it. I was a young girl. I used to have my father wake me up to go to shul with him. I was a nerd. I liked minions. Whatever, like, why would I want that? But I did, but I found that as life got busier, I wasn't carving it out because I didn't see it as my own lifeline. So there's a value in making it real and meaningful. And I want to say this, girls, you could ask any questions when we're learning together. I'm happy to do it. For next week, my commitment is Elul. We'll cover that because Chodesh Elul is around the corner. I don't know about you, but I'm so ready to hit the reset button on this year. I'm ready for Rosh Hashanah, like big time, even though I know clearly I'm not, because I have a whole month beforehand. But so the Abishur is like, you still have a little bit of work to do. But so cute, because when we're doing Shabbos Mavarchim, there's no menu, we're in our house, whatever. One of my sons like, oh, like now Shaifer comes back, I'm so excited. Like we can get ourselves to that place where we are not like, woohoo, I'm pumped, not that like creepy weird, but like in a real like, wow, a new month is coming, a new year is coming, like it's exciting, Tishrei is coming, like we can get ourselves there. So for next week, we're going to cover Chodesh Elul, and any questions that do come up, I'm happy to answer. It doesn't have to be on par. Is there time? Does anyone, I know people have to jump off. I got 1 or 2 questions privately. Is whoever wrote those private questions, just respond quickly whether you'll be able to get on next week. If you're not able to get on next week, I will answer it this week. Just message me privately. If you're able to get on next week, I will wrap, because ladies and gentlemen, our charity campaign starts tomorrow. I'm a little in over our head. There's a lot going on. Our life is a little bit flying now. So whoever that was, if you have time to jump on next week, I'm very happy to answer this. If not, I'll answer it right now. Okay, that person's clearly not sure. They didn't respond. I saw 2 questions. Okay, so I'll answer this question now. The one that the person is not sure they're able to. It's a really important question, and I think it's a question that's getting more and more blurry in 2020 than it ever was. So this is with regard to PDA. If you don't know what PDA is, it's public display of affection. That means husbands and wives who are in a relationship with each other, who are committed to each other, we're not talking. Yes, we'll do the same time next week, okay? Leia's in charge of reminding us all, including me, Leia. Okay, I'm gonna put it on my calendar. I'm happy to do it. Love learning, and I'm excited to learn about Chayda with you next week. And L plus, you know, whatever other subjects come up along the line. It's all Torah, it's all good, you know? So public display of affection means people, we're not talking about, like I remember when we first moved here and we had a student who'd walk, there was like a long line of 40 people. She'd walk from guy to guy giving massages. And my kids were like, what is wrong? Like, why is this even acceptable, normal behavior? We're not talking about that. We're talking about people are husbands and wives. Maybe they're taking pictures and they're all romantic pictures and they're touching each other. Or maybe it's their wedding picture and they're whatever. If you see it out there, you've seen it. If you haven't, you haven't. For most people, it is uncomfortable being around a couple that are all over each other. It's just, yeah, like, I don't need to see that. Like, it's great that you love each other, enjoy it, it's whatever. So to answer that question, I want to share with you, once years ago, I had one of my own children. We're learning together and the kid says, it's really gross what students do. And I'm like, okay, where are we going with this? And I'm like, what do you mean? It's really gross what students do with their body. And I'm like, what do you mean? So I'm like, well, what's gross? You know, the way they touch each other and they're hugging and kissing and, you know, I knew there was more to the story, right? The kid obviously had more in their mind. The kid was seeing things and was curious and didn't know where. So thank God, Baruch Hashem, my kids generally know they could come to me or my husband and ask us anything. And that's the kind of relationship we really, really, really is important to us. That our children should know that there's no question they cannot ask because Tara has an opinion on everything. And if I don't know the answer, I will get them the answer. So I said to the child, why is it disgusting? And they said, well, you and Tati would never hug and kiss, would you? That's a great question. And I said, well, which I answered, I think the kid was 10, 11, I don't know, maybe younger, 9. So I said, Hashem gave us an opportunity to express, a way to express all emotions. Always zoom out. When you're sad, you cry. When something's funny, you laugh. When you love someone, you hug and kiss them. It's how we express an emotion. Of course I love Tati, he's my best friend. But that being said, as Yidden and as Hasidim, we have Edelkeit and we have Tznius. And so therefore it's something that's private between a husband and a wife. I happen to think when couples are all over each other in public, there's an immaturity there where they're trying to prove to the world that they love each other. If you need, I remember when we were getting married, and this is 100 years ago, right? 22 years ago. And the photographer was like, okay, you put your hand on him. And I'm like, no. And he's like, you gotta, come on, you're married. Like, it was pressuring us. And I'm like, we know we love each other. It's fine. We don't need to prove to anyone to have documented in a picture that we can hug each other. We're so excited. We could kiss each other. We knew we were happy. We were ready to be married to each other. That wasn't a question. If I thought that we weren't, I would not be at that chuppah with him, okay? Like, if I wasn't sure, I would not have been there. So that being said, I don't feel like I need to prove it to anyone. It comes from a place of like, I feel like it's a little bit, I'm going to say something on it, I think it's a little immature. And it's insensitive to others because it's uncomfortable seeing people all over each other. It isn't. It's like, where's your level of tznius? Where's your level of boundaries? Where's your level of edelkeit? Where's your level of something sacred between the two of you? And I want to say this. I said this to my students, and I'm going to say it here. Years ago in the shtetl, everyone knew who was rich and who was poor. The rich man who provided the money for the bread and the food and whatever, who was poor, who was the ani in town who needed tzedakah, right? But what went on in people's private romantic lives, their bedrooms, their taras mishpacha, no one talked about. There was edelkeit and tznius. Nowadays, we have parades to declare who you love, walking in the streets. We have whole months where we celebrate it. But God forbid if you ask someone, hey, how much do you have in savings? How much is your salary? What would they say? People would be like, we are influenced by a world that is upside down. And when I see all these young couples that are so enamored with each other, enjoy each other, be happy, be in love, romantic, whatever you want to call it. It's not real love. We'll talk about that another time. Fine. It's all good. Really be committed to this person. Be excited about spending the rest of your life with them. Baruch Hashem. There's a time and a place for it. But I think it's a self-respect thing. Like, what am I trying to prove? There is edelkeit and tznius involved. And can I ask anyone here, and you could do I could do a silent poll. Have you ever been around a couple that's all over each other? Is it comfortable? It is. Anyone? It is uncomfortable. It's like, thanks, there's a bedroom for that. Go, like, I'm sorry for being so honest here, but I think I've said I'm gonna always be honest. Hello, I'm not interested to know that, yay, you are neither, you're not neither, you could touch each other, you can't touch it. I should know what's going on in your life. It's something, it's a little bit off. And I think it's a lot of people trying to prove it. And then what happens is the more I post the Instagram pictures of me and my husband with our arms around each other, I'm like, I'm so glad you love each other, but I don't even know. But then the more people do it, the more everyone thinks they need to do it. And then the more people are like, what's wrong with my relationship that we're not? Like, I think it's, I'm going to say it here, I think it's overcompensating. I think you're like trying to prove something to people. A healthy relationship doesn't need to prove to everyone else that you're in a healthy relationship. I really don't think so. So I think there's something usually either lacking or there's something that's, there's something missing. And I think sometimes it's immaturity. Sometimes it's just we're so excited to be married to each other or whatever. I think, you know, even like if playfully, like or my husband has a thing and I'll like go to touch him, like my kids will be like, Ma, like, not that they don't know that we love each other. They know we love each other. It's not, I hope that that's not the only way they'll know if I love. Will my children love someone? But if my kids don't see me hugging and kissing, they won't know we love each other. I'm like, I hope there's other ways you express love. Like they should see the way you treat each other, the way you talk to each other. There's a lot of ways to express love. A hug and a kiss or physical expression of it is only one way. I think it's a really good opportunity to have. I think there's something to be said. So for the person who asked that question, I hope that answers it. If it did not answer it in full, feel free to follow up. I think also, especially once you're married and there's Hilchas Nida, where there's times in the month where you can't touch each other, then it becomes even more awkward. So when everyone sees, usually you're all over each other, but now you're not. So everyone needs to know, oh, guess what? Soon she's gonna be going to, like, I don't know. I think there's a reason we have halachas of tznius, and this falls under it. I really do. Like, I don't want to know when my good friend is going to the mikvah or not. Like, it's not my business. Like, yeah, and ew, sorry. Get what I'm saying? So I hope that answered that question. If it did, if that person feels it was not answered adequately, then jump on, you can private WhatsApp me. I could drop some voice notes. And we're gonna wrap for today. Is that okay, ladies? Because
Thank you.
supper's a week. Chayda Shalom next week, girls.
Thanks so
Looking
much.
very forward.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
It's literally a pleasure. I really enjoy this. Bye.
Bye.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Good
Bye,
luck
thank
tomorrow.
you.
Oh yeah, thank you. It's gonna work. Hashem's in charge.
Man, good luck. Bye.
Yes, yes. Bye.